how to eat a crankbait the right way. That is how you know you got the right color.
Hey YouTube, welcome back to Locked In Anglers. Today we're going to talk about some shallow diving crankbaits and some medium diving crankbaits. It's some fun stuff. I mean, it's a bite that can be very productive on getting your limit together. I mean, I've caught so many fish on like the rock crawlers and these square bills and then the good old fashioned hot lips. Man, like I've stroked a lot of smallmouth on those baits.
Yeah, it's just a great technique to really optimize that spring pre-spawn feeding mentality that a lot of these fish are getting in as they're just transitioning towards the spawn. And the good thing is a crankbait really represents a crawfish, and they are dialed in on the crawfish bite this time of year. I mean, you'll see as we kind of walk through these, at least one of every type of crankbait that we throw is red, and that's probably where we're going to start in most times this time of year. So just to kind of right size and get kind of tell you kind of the areas that we're targeting this time of year, we're looking for those, like when it's a true crankbait bite, we're really looking for either rockier areas. If we're looking at that deeper diving, medium diving crankbait, we're looking kind of in that like 8 to 12 foot zone, and looking for basically we go for two different types of crankbaits. We go for like a rock crawler, a really natural one, has a decent amount of like low profile sound, and then you have the hot lips, which is really loud. And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to cover the water in these staging areas in between like the deep water access, the main lake point, and the spawning spot. And usually along the way there's a handful of either rocky ledges, rock piles, a handful of just true staging areas for both smallmouth and largemouth to set up on and feed as they go into the spawning and into their spawning months.
See, and a lot of times we'll take these baits just to catch your limit. You know, like say you want to head over this cove, but it looks like some great area to fish, like going into a cove where some other fish are. We'll just strap these on our hands and just cover water, because you can pick up a limit with these baits so fast and pick up a big one here and there. I mean, not all the time you're going to pick up that big one, but a lot of times you can stack a good limit together with all these and then just go from there, you know, then start throwing out your bigger baits and whatnot. But I love throwing these things because you can catch a lot of fish, and sometimes you can catch the right fish on these.
Exactly. And so to walk through our progression, early in the year, we're talking like 47 to 52 degree water temp. We're going with baits like the Little John, the Speed Trap, baits that have a very flat side and a really tight wobble. And those are baits that we're just going to cover a ton of water with, and we're going to basically just cast towards shore, work it back in a pretty steady retrieve, and then just throw in some reel pops, kill it a couple of times, just to throw some variation in the retrieve. And then overarchingly, if we're throwing these square bill type lures, we're just looking to deflect it off anything and everything.
Definitely.
Lay downs, dock pilings, even ticking the tops of grass, just trying to make contact with the structure around in some capacity to create a reaction strike when the bait deflects.
Definitely. That's why I was also saying, like, why I throw these crankbaits into the trees and really deflect off the branches and everything, because they're going to stage up and group up in those trees, so draw them out. But I mean, also, we throw a lot of these square bills super shallow because sometimes they just want to go get in that sun, you know, start warming up. So throw it in the dirt, crank it through there, bang it all around in the rocks, the wood, everything in there. And a lot of times you can draw them out of the stuff with these things because it's just creating so much action, you know, bouncing, deflecting off these rocks. That's why square bills are so essential if you're trying to hit that dirt shallow stuff.
Totally agree. And honestly, we keep it really simple with crankbaits. We basically run with the larger size square bills, usually because these are the ones we're throwing in the thick of it. This one's a silent one. This is a silent 1.5. And then we basically run the silent model of a 1.5 Lucky Craft and a 2.5 Strike King square bill. And then we run the silent versions of the bluegill and perch. As you'll see, we really stick to a lot of the silent presentations because we have a lot clearer water up where we fish, and it's only in like rare flooding conditions that we really get those true muddy waters where you need a lot of sound to draw these fish in.
Yeah, a lot of times when we get into those real tough dirty water situations, I'll throw this big bright chartreuse blackback. I mean, I don't know how many big fish I've caught now, and it's got that deep tone to it, so it's really easy for them to track. Because also the nice thing about the square bills is that they put off so much water when they're coming through because they wobble so hard and they're just really moving. So it's really great for when you're fishing that dirty water to just throw maybe some brighter stuff or just a little bit louder stuff to really get their attention because they don't see as far. I mean, it's just natural. It's dirty, you can't see, right?
Yeah, and so they're just going to rely on their lateral lines a lot more, and just they'll feel the vibration of the water being pushed. And then the only other real in between kind of before we get to the real medium diving depth is the DT6, and that's something you relied a lot on the tour.
Heck yeah, the DT6. These two baits right here helped me out catching fish everywhere. Like, didn't matter where I was. Wind, no wind, rock, whatever, I'm catching fish out of these. But I really was able to use these for locating fish. Yeah, it's a little bit smaller profile, but I've caught a lot of big fish out of these. But like, you can just run down the bank with both those baits, whichever color you feel comfortable. Either you're chasing a bait bite or you're chasing a craw bite. I mean, you can just find fish with those DT6s. It's a great locator, in my opinion.
Agreed, and they have great color profiles. They're that balsa wood that just there's something about balsa and early spring cold water that those fish just absolutely, they just key in on that type of movement and that type of roll that the baits produce.
Definitely. So one thing that I can say about these though, don't boat flip every fish because they will fall apart on you. I mean, after you catch like 50 of them, it's like it just comes apart on you. But one thing that we didn't really talk about is the good old-fashioned wiggle wart. The good old-fashioned wiggle wart. I mean, this isn't the wood one, so we don't have that, but this has just been still a great presentation and still just catches so many fish in that cold water because it has a tight wobble on it. So, and when it's that colder water, you don't want super wide, even though we've been talking about this, but you still want the tight wobble with these sometimes. But like, we'll throw these when the water picks up to like 50 degrees, mid-50s and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they're more active, not so shy to chase a bait down.
Agreed. And then, I mean, honestly, the main crankbait that you'll see on our deck on just about any reservoir tournament is a rock crawler.
Yeah.
Spro rock crawler. They came out with, they were attempting to create a new version of the wiggle wart. They did a fantastic job of it. It's got a ton of different colors. We stick mostly to the craw color spectrum, and this is one that we just glue in our hands and we just absolutely cover bank. Riprap, rock flats, rock humps, anything rock, roadbed related. It's such a good bait for grinding through really treacherous terrain because it just doesn't get stuck.
Definitely.
And the hookup ratio on it is stellar. I mean, I've had so many days fishing highland reservoirs where we're catching 20 to 70 fish on that.
No kidding.
It's just crazy, and they have a really good color variety. They've just started they branched out into some bait fish colors as well that we've been experimenting with, but tried and true, we're sticking with the red bug color. They've got a ghost crawfish color that's really good for clear water, and it's just a bait that we have an immense amount of confidence in locating fish with.
Definitely. Now going to the rod perspective, I like throwing a glass rod. I mean, some days I'll go to a rod with a little bit more backbone, but I really like throwing that glass rod because it just absorbs the whole entire everything. Absorbs everything, and I really like throwing on like a 6-3-1, and depending on what I'm fishing. So if I'm fishing a square bill, I could be throwing 16 to 20 pound on there because I'm throwing in the stuff, in the thick stuff. But when I'm throwing like any of these baits over here, it'll be like 10 to 12 pound. I'm more leaning on the 12 pound just because I hit the fish too hard normally.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And we're pretty set on throwing a Sunline Sniper for these because that line there's something about it. It is so incredibly strong, and as we're grinding through really sharp rock for hours on end, I feel we've gotten fish in the boat that we did not deserve to get in the boat one bit. That line just has an ability to hold up when you pair that with the glass rod as well. It's just it does a lot of our gear really helps us land these fish, but it's just a bait that it's a do nothing bait. I mean, anyone can go out and just pull off on the side of a highway and cast on riprap and catch fish
Pretty
on
much.
baits. I mean, they're just fish catchers.
Shoot, these baits right here, I will throw them all year.
Yep.
Just because they just catch fish.
Yeah, they do.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, they're versatile. You can fish them in a lot of different depths, and they just work.
Yeah,
They just
no
work.
kidding.
Smallmouth, largemouth, doesn't matter. All of them will come up and eat it.
No kidding. I mean, biggest thing I can recommend to you guys coming out of this video and listen to us. I mean, you'll see us all year with it, but I recommend you having one of these baits tied on every single day you go out there and try and throw it a few times. I mean, some days you might not catch them on, but you'll slowly learn, like, hey, well, this is what I need to do for this crankbait when I'm trying to go this depth and whatnot, and you'll learn how to catch fish with it. I mean, they just dominate, really.
Yeah.
All these baits here just dominate and catch a lot of fish.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that you will put yourself in the best situation if you fish these baits in areas where most people aren't fishing this type of bait. I mean, like Travis mentioned, throwing the 2.5 square bills into brush piles. It's not the easiest to work them out of there, but you're getting bites that nobody else is getting because they've just been hit by flipping baits the entire time. So there's a lot of creativity you can have, but then there's just also a ridiculous amount of consistency with these bites. It always works.
Yeah, they're plain and simple every day of the week. It's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey guys, and if you learned something here, feel free to hit the like button. And if you guys have a favorite crankbait that we missed, drop it in the comments. We'd be happy to review it or check it out ourselves.
Tight lines.